The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise, your AML automation software for faster onboarding, smarter monitoring, and growth without overhead.
As a tourist, you could basically be a police officer in Sweden fighting organized crime and going to Mexico for vacation and renting an apartment owned by a gang that you're fighting.
That is some pretty ironic stuff.
It is.
Money make a world go round.
Welcome to The Laundry, the podcast connecting AML compliance and financial crime to the real world. Grenade attacks, kidnappings, young boys coerced into gang crime. This is all actually happening in Norway right now, and it's causing a frenzy in the news.
Ja, nesten som en bombe, nærmest. Skikkelig smell.
Vi vet ennå svært lite om denne eksplosjonen, men her på stedet ved Pilestredet det fullt.
But where there's organized crime, there's also dark money. Otherwise, why bother? I'm your host, Robin Lycka, resident sanctions man at Strise, and in this episode, we're asking how's organized crime and dark money infiltrating Norway? We'll be discussing the playbooks, crime as a service, and front companies. Beyond the violence, what are we seeing in Norway, and what compliance professionals should be on the lookout for? To dive into this topic, I'm joined from Stockholm by Diamant Salihu. Diamant Salihu is an investigative journalist at SVT, known for his extensive reporting and authorship on gang crime in Sweden. He's the award-winning author of the books Tills alla dör, Until Everyone Dies, and När ingen lyssnar, When Nobody's Listening. Welcome to The Laundry, Diamant. What's been keeping you busy this morning?
Yeah, this morning we had one of Sweden's most wanted gang leaders just arrived here with a private plane from Cancun, Mexico, where he was arrested 1 week ago. He's been wanted for 2 years, red list noted through Interpol. And this is a big story and also a victory for the Swedish government, the Swedish police that has done a lot of efforts to try to catch the gang leaders that are abroad and that are considered responsible for ordering explosions, kidnappings, drug smuggling, recruitment of teenagers to commit murders, and so on.
That is big breaking news today.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thanks for the introduction there, Diamant. Let's dive into the discussion. We'll start by looking at some of your findings from the recent TV series, Once We Were Brothers. If you had to sum up the aims of the Foxtrot gang, how would you put that in their aims to the simplest terms?
The aim for Foxtrot, as for other networks, is to earn as much money as possible on drugs, on frauds, and reinvest that in new crimes, in better methods, in better technology to commit even more crimes. What we've seen when it comes to Foxtrot specifically here in Sweden is how that network in just a few years has gone from being linked to drug smuggling, then going to using extreme violence, recruitment of children and young adults to commit attacks on rivals, but also totally innocent people. Attacks on rivals' parents. That is like no limits. And then last year we saw also the same modus that they've been using on each other to attack rivals, but instead now targeting Israeli targets. We have done in our series, we could conclude that there has been 6 attacks and 1 planned attack on Israeli embassies in Sweden, Denmark, and Belgium, and also attacks on Elbit, a weapon company from Israel that has an office here in Sweden. So they've gone from drug smuggling to doing proxy attacks, in this case for the Iranian regime.
And how successful would you say that it seems that they have been in this aim?
They have been very successful and built a lot of money around this crime organization with different kind of arms or legs or whatever you call it to earn money. But they have also been very hurt and in recent years because of the gang wars, the violence. They've been attacking each other. So when it comes to Foxtrot, several of their more important persons have been killed or arrested in different countries. And the leader himself, Rav Majid, or the so-called Kurdish Fox, is allegedly in Iran since the end of 2023. And there he is like in a situation where he has allegedly been pushed by the regime to either be imprisoned or to work for the regime, in this case, through his network to attack the Israeli targets.
And when a gang is known by its name, at least in Scandinavia, you would imagine that they're pretty much fully exposed. I mean, they even have a Wikipedia page. So how is this gang still operating?
They have alliances around Sweden and around the world. So they have people that are loyal to the leader, Rav Majid, that are residing in different countries where the Swedish authorities at the moment has not been able to reach them. From there, they use a lot of, they communicate a lot through encrypted chats to build alliances with local criminals who can sell their drugs and also extort people and use Foxtrot's brand to do that. And allegedly that is what is happening in Norway in this big case that is ongoing there, that Foxtrot has become such a brand linked to violence, murders, and that can now be used by new proxies to commit local crimes in different countries.
And when you mention brand, there's also like an industrial term like crime as a service that we're seeing. So can you explain a little bit about what that term means and how it's connected to this?
Yeah, so that has been something that Foxtrot has really been developing, a method where they have put ads on social media platforms, for example, like looking for somebody who can detonate or somebody that can commit a murder. And from there, they have been able to reach out to a huge audience through social media and target very vulnerable, easy manipulated young people, boys and girls, young adults, that have been offered money to commit different crimes.
In the dead of night, a 15-year-old left home. He was told to pick up a gun. He claims he didn't know why. It was just a job. So this is the journey he would have taken in a taxi last May. He was getting instructions constantly on a secure messaging app, telling him where to go, where to find the gun, what to do next. And his target was the Israeli embassy in Stockholm. He never makes it to his destination. Police stop him en route. But within 24 hours, another kid, this time just 14 years old, is dispatched. And this time, he gets there.
These vulnerable people have been sent all around Sweden, but also on export to commit crimes. We have a 19-year-old from a small city in Sweden that was sent to Baghdad to commit the murder. This was, by the way, by Rav Majid's enemy and former allied friend Ismail Abdo. So when I say Foxtrot using crime as a service, I mean both of these sides. They sent this 19-year-old hitman to Baghdad and committed a murder there on a close ally to Rav Majid. They sent another hit squad to Sarajevo in Bosnia to commit the murder. They attempted a murder in Moss in Norway. And in Sweden, we've seen all of these murders, explosions. We've seen youngsters going to Denmark, around 30 of them, trying to commit different kind of crimes, believing that they will be paid. But as far as I know, honestly, I don't know one example where these teenagers have been paid. One of the main goals, as far as I've heard from the environment, is that they want to use these vulnerable people until they get arrested. And when they get arrested, they don't have to pay them. And because they've been using social media and recruiters, there's so many layers between the instigators and the teenagers, so they don't even know who to ask for money. And they don't have any violent capital to use to threaten the gang that is considered to be very dangerous. So it's a very, very cheap way to target enemies, but also not only gang rivals, but also political targets, as in this case.
When they have these huge amounts of drug monies in their networks, from your investigations into these operations, what has the network of front businesses look like?
As far as we've seen, and some examples, now in this most recent case, Dalen, they're working all the same, I would say. This gang leader called the Greek that was just deported to Sweden, he and his network has allegedly had apartments on the coast south of Cancun in Mexico that they have been renting out through, Airbnb and that kind of platforms. So they invest their money in property, so they can either rent them out or renovate and sell and launder money that way. So I would say the property market is an important way to launder this kind of money. They also use, I would say, in Abdo's case, Ismail Abdo, who is the enemy of Rava Majid, he's been using allegedly the family empire, which consists of logistics and import of fruits and vegetables, to launder his money. When it comes to Rava Majid, his family actually had an ice cream shop in the center of university city called Uppsala. His mom worked there, and she had an old man working for her for free, basically. But his mom used an EncroChat phone to communicate with her son back then. And you could see through the EncroChat messages how drug money was delivered to the ice cream shop. And from there was sent to exchange places. So that money could be held in the exchange offices, but also delivered through the Hawala system, underground banking system, to wherever Rava Majid wanted to have the money. So it's very hard to say that you have one specific kind of front companies. I would say it's like, as we say in Sweden, a smörgåsbord of a lot of options that they try to use to launder the money. The property, the ice cream shop, restaurants, the money launderers that work with Hawala, that have different kind of businesses around them that they can use to launder the money. That's what has made this kind of networks very efficient, and that has led to them gaining a lot of money in just a few years. For example, Rava Majid has a villa in Bodrum, the coast of Turkey, that he bought for around 1.7 million euros in 2022. And he still has that villa.
It's an interesting point that you make on real estate. In my line of work, we often talk about the data points and the enablers of this. So are we kind of by proxy saying here that Airbnb is almost an enabler of layering money through property, through rentals? And like, could you literally be part of layering money into the clean economy by renting an Airbnb when you go on vacation?
I mean, according to my sources in this environment, that is exactly what has been going on when it comes to the Greeks' properties in Mexico, that they've been renting out apartments through these kind of platforms. I don't know if I specifically can say that it's just Airbnb, but these different kind of platforms that makes it possible to rent out your apartment. And as a tourist, you could basically be a police officer in Sweden fighting organized crime and going to Mexico for vacation and renting an apartment owned by a gang that you're fighting.
That is some pretty ironic stuff.
It is. They are very creative. They need to invest their money somehow. So when these networks, I say networks because they're still not that organized as the mafia or the MC gangs or the Kinahan family or whatever they're called, all these, the cartels. So they are very friend-based and not as hierarchical as the other organized crime groups. But they're still very creative and they're trying to, in this case, some of them are found this way, this path to launder the money and reinvest it. But they are still in an early age of them becoming more organized. So I fear that if they would become more organized, then they would have many properties in different places. I mean, I've done stories about the property market in Dubai, for example, where we had the collaboration with around 70 plus media companies, where we could see that you had warlords, drug lords, oligarchs, convicted murderers, a guy from Sweden, fraudsters, all of them had invested in property in Dubai, and that was a lot of money. So as the more organized these groups become, the more money they get, they have to invest it, and they find harbors where they can invest it in, for example, in property, which is one of the best ways to use your crime money.
I have to ask, I have a burning question. You talk a lot about named individuals, named criminal networks. I sometimes talk about Russian oligarchs and their ownership into Scandinavian entities, and it makes me slightly uncomfortable. This is way out of my comfort zone to talk about these named individuals. But do you ever feel threatened in any sense, or do you feel safe in your line of work as an investigative reporter?
I know I have colleagues in other parts of the world that really are not safe and where they fear for their lives daily. Fortunately, I don't have to feel that way. I've been in situations where there's been confrontations and threats, but I've decided that if I want to cover this kind of stories and be very open, name people, I need to stand up for myself and not be afraid, and all the time have very fact-based reporting. So if I communicate with the gangs, with the leaders, with those that are under them, I communicate with the authorities, with the victims, with the parents of the gang leaders. And that, I think, also lowers the risk a bit because they see that I'm not taking a side. I'm just doing reporting that is very nuanced.
Well put. Okay, we'll be right back to talk more about the global impact as well as the local impact here in Norway. Don't go anywhere.
Your data problem?
And your workflow problem?
Now it isn't your problem. Strise is your ultimate solution to streamline customer due diligence and perpetual KYC.
Transforming your AML strategy from a manual burden to an automated winner.
Nice!
With AI-centric automation at its heart, Strise fast-tracks your time to revenue.
And because we know the future is as uncertain as it is exciting,
Strise is modular by design.
prepare for tomorrow's risks and regulations today with flexibility that adapts to whatever the future holds.
And best of all,
You experience value from day one, instant use out of the box.
visit strise.ai and try our live demo today.
Back to the show.
Welcome back, listener. Got something you want to say on this podcast? You can find me and all the laundry presenters on LinkedIn. Drop us a message or a comment. Okay, we've talked about how organized crime works in Sweden. Let's now look at the international element. We've seen incidents of property damage with grenades and kidnappings here in Norway. What do these episodes of destruction and violence point towards?
It points towards that this is not a Swedish condition, as our neighboring countries love to call this. I think by saying that is a very easy way to just like, no, this is not our problem, it's their problem. And that was exactly what was happening before in Sweden, when we didn't really consider this a main issue. So what is happening now is that the situation that we have in Sweden, this gangster culture, this violent culture that has escalated, this radicalization that has been going on, and normalization also in our society, where we now like, oh, it's another one dead, or another explosion that is normal, which is sad to be in this situation. I think that is now the fire that has been going around in Sweden until now is also moving to Norway. We're seeing gang criminals already trying to establish in Norway. Some of them have been arrested, extradited, but they have also put influence on local criminals who now start using the same violence, the same methods as we consider normal here in Sweden. So I think this tillstånd, this condition in Sweden, is now becoming also a Norwegian condition.
Yeah, it's an interesting term. Every time I see the term Swedish conditions, I think about, like, it seems that we have completely forgotten that Norway had a huge problem with organized and gang crime in the 90s. And to me, it seems like there's this cyclical aspect to it, that history will repeat itself. And it seems that we are moving into a new period of more organized and gang crime in Norway as well. Could you say a little bit about what's different from then to now, from apart from the obvious, like we now have smartphones?
As far as I know about Norway, and talking to the more older generation there, it was like here. There were rules. You had more clear lines between Gang A and Gang B, Gang C. They had some kind of either local territory or family-based or ethnical link to each other. But now it's the digital platforms, the brands that are more important, makes it much more difficult to see exactly who is who in this. So in that way, it's much more difficult for the authorities to see clearly what gangs to look up for. And the difference that's now also from, if you compare to the past, is that if you talk to older criminals, they would say that if they had a conflict between each other, they would try to discuss the problem and solve it, pay money to maybe solve it, and in the worst scenario, shoot somebody in the leg or even worse. But that had a lot of steps before you took to deadly violence. But now the violence is like the first or second step that you take. I mean, you have a conflict, you don't negotiate. Instead, you just shoot somebody or send somebody to throw a hand grenade at your address. And that is a big difference, that you have no more layers before, and you also have very young teenagers that are doing this without thinking about the consequences and without even being part of the network, just being used as trash.
It's almost like they have a new marketing channel that makes it easier to recruit the younger generation, because obviously showing off in social media channels the incredible wealth that they have, it's extremely alluring, and it's this glorification of crime, and it normalizes it for the younger generation as well.
Exactly, and that's how they also are able to recruit vulnerable people from all around Sweden. Not only those that are from broken families, but also those that we describe as middle class families, because you have vulnerable kids there as well. Those that have a migrant background, those that have a Swedish ethnical background. And that's also why, when thinking about what do we need to do about this, it's always important to think about the technology. How do we deal with these platforms? What kind of responsibility are they taking to prevent this grooming that it is about? So we don't see these explosions and killings.
Another interesting aspect of this is the ties to larger regimes. So there is the aspect that you brought up in the TV series with the links to the Iranian regime. Is this becoming a national security issue?
Yes, definitely. When you have the rise of organized crime, that organized crime will always find the way to extremism. So that's exactly what we have seen in Sweden already. And it doesn't only have to involve the Foxtrot network as we have described in our series, but it can be new groups. I'm just waiting for Russia to use vulnerable people, homeless people, to commit more sabotage and maybe other kind of attacks in our society. So when dealing with this situation, it's so important to look up a bit and try to see the bigger picture, because it's easy to just focus on the hand grenade that was detonated that involved 12-year-olds, but not seeing the fire that is spreading and what kind of people it involves, how this normalization affects the society, what kind of people that are making this possible, that are part of the white economy, that are helping these groups, these extreme groups, to launder their money, to do the smuggling, to do the investments, and so on. And in the end, the result of that is that you have terror.
When you say the laundering of money, obviously, this is our industry and what a lot of our listeners are working with on a daily basis. But from your experience and having looked at this in detail now, how crucial is the flow of money in stopping and ceasing the threats that we are seeing on the streets?
If you stop the money and seize assets, you will break down these organizations. They're so in need of the money and the flow of the money that if you go in and just stop it, if you go after the Hawala brokers, for example, or you take their property, what do they have left? Everyone in this environment is in it, at least what they say, is for the money. So it's crucial that authorities, the banks that see the frauds, that everyone works to target the assets in property and also the money that they can find linked to these kind of groups.
Okay, before we end this episode, we're going to dish out some quick fire questions for you. Are you ready for this? And remember, keep your answers short.
I'll try to.
The biggest misconception about gang crime is
that it only involves migrants very broken people. It's not. It involves a lot of skilled people as well, because they are those that makes this flow possible.
Can Norwegian authorities stop this kind of organized crime for getting a foothold again in Norway?
I believe yes, because the Norwegians seem ready to deal with this. I see how they are having these crisis meetings in Oslo, that the police are working together with all the different regions. There is a resilience that I think can stop this escalation if it continues to be taken seriously.
The one thing Norwegian compliance professionals, enforcement, and regulators should be looking out for related to gang money.
All kinds of frauds, because it's a very, very important source for crime money. In Sweden, we see how the earnings from drugs are considered to be around 3 billion Swedish crowns, but the earnings from frauds are more than 8 billion. So it's very important to take that kind of transactions seriously and do everything to prevent the gangs to enter their hands in that kind of pockets.
Why dedicate your time and energy to reporting on gang crime?
Because the society we live in is in need for knowledge around these very complex issues. My job as a journalist and as an author is to make my parents, your parents, understand what this is about and what is on stake. If everybody understands that, then we will take this seriously and hopefully prevent the criminals from taking over.
That's a great answer, Diamant. This brings this spin of the laundry to an end. Diamant, thank you so much for joining me. Where can people find and connect with you?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn or on Instagram, where I have my professional account. And they can read my books that are translated to different languages. And my last book, When Nobody is Listening, is actually out in English. So you can read it in English as well.
Money makes the world go round.
Thank you all for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast, check out the back catalog of more than 8 seasons and 130 episodes, and follow The Laundry on your podcast platform of choice. Please share the podcast on your social media channels. Tell a colleague to subscribe. Maybe give us a 5-star rating. It really helps people to find us. Got something interesting you want to share with us? Comment on the Strise LinkedIn, my LinkedIn, or email laundry@strise.ai. Your host for this episode was me, Robin Banks. Our producer was Matthew, our editor was Dominic, and our engineer was Nicholas. The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise. Visit strise.ai for more information, and see you next time.
Money makes the world go round. It makes the world go round.
How are you, Robin?
Even when I'm doing bad, I'm doing good.
Oh, that's good to hear.
The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise, your AML automation software for faster onboarding, smarter monitoring, and growth without overhead.